Well, you had a different mom. You had a different dad. Coming from that place, that relieves so much of the pressure, because it's not that you got it right or got it wrong, it's you got it right in that season. I made the best decisions I knew how to make as a 25-year-old Alyce with my firstborn. And I'm making the best decisions now as a 45-year-old with a 10-year-old. And it shows up very differently.
And I love the idea of your household being a place where anything's up for discussion, right? Especially as the kids get older, it's like anything's on the table. And it's just also, it's like, where is the primary influence for your children? Is it with the parents? Is it with the culture? Is it with their teacher, with their friends? And I mean, that's something I'm always paying attention to and striving for. It's like, okay, who's influencing my kid? And is anybody's voice louder than me right now? I mean, my kids are pretty young, so I have a little bit easier job right now. But I mean, it's 19, 17, 13, 10, they get their phones now. They get that, they get to drive. They're going off to school, college. Like, there's all sorts of influences that are going to be there. But the fact that she's calling you at 5:04 tells me you're the one she wants to talk to most, right? Yeah. And so that's a really empowering and inspiring thing. One of the things you said about friendship, you were talking about this idea, you two, I thought I was the only one. You mentioned earlier, moms don't have a support group. And it's funny because we're over here as dads, we're like, dads don't have a support group. We had to go find it. And it's like, it's funny. I mean, maybe no one has a support group. I don't know. But it's like, what do you think how can moms find support, And to your other point around competition and, kind of even being judgmental to each other and tearing each other down from time to time, that you see, women, and everyone does it, but you see sometimes reputation attacks and character attacks more with women. I'm just curious, like, how can a mom really find her spot, find her niche, and find a community or support group that she needs? What would you say to that?
Yeah. So, even just to start with, why do we see that happen? Why do we see women tearing each other down? Well, it's because it was modeled for us. It's what we saw. We do what we see. We do what we've experienced. We do what we think is normal, right? Like, we think about habits that you have that if you really dig into why you have the habit, you're like, I don't know why I do it. Well, I bet if you dig a little bit, you'll find that either your mom or dad did it. And it was just so ingrained in you, you do it too. I mean, I start in the book talking about grocery bags. When Seth and I got married, I saved all of our plastic grocery bags, and I actually still do. And there's this cabinet, all the plastic bags go to die. And he's like, we don't need all these bags. I'm like, but you're not going to throw them away. Like, they stay there. And it wasn't until, we went to my mom's house, realized, oh, she's been doing this since I was born. Like, the bags come home and they go in. And so it was modeled, and subconsciously, well, that's what I do. Or maybe it's where you put the milk in the refrigerator. You've got the spot. It's in that spot. And you will like die on a hill for it, because that's how it was always been for you. It's not that you actually care. It's just what was modeled. So I think women have seen this fighting for so long that we're like, we just kind of think that's normal. And so I want to set, what does a new normal look like for us to be supportive of one another? In the entrepreneurial space, I see a lot of opportunities for the guys to get together, right? There's all kinds of networking groups and just all kinds of groups. Like, you name it, there's a group for the guys. And if a guy decides, like, my husband found something going on, he's like, oh, I'm going to go to this. It's really not that big of a deal for him to pick up and go. He doesn't have to think about the 4 kids and how they're going to get to school and making sure there's groceries and the house is clean and the dog's taken care of. He just goes, and I support him in his going. One, it's really hard for a woman, I think even an entrepreneurial woman, to find a space to go to. If she finds a space, it's usually with men, and a lot of times primarily men. Again, no judgment in that. It's just the way that it is. And a lot of time for women to leave the house, we feel like it's so much work to leave that we start thinking about it and we're tired, that we're just like, to heck with it. I'll either just watch it online or I won't go, or I'll get notes from somebody else. It's just not worth it, right? Because I've got to coordinate rides to school, from school, clothes, laundry, food, play dates, sports. Like, my mind's already like, I don't know how it's all going to get done. Forget it. I'm not going to go. And then there's just not a variety of places for us to choose from. So that was part of the book too. It was, I want to speak to entrepreneurial moms, whether that's you run a 6-7 figure business or you just run a high level household, right? And you're wanting to elevate who you're friends with. And so I've started to create the communities. So we've got the Magic Mom Experience, we've got the Magic Mom Community. I teach moms how to grow their business through growing community wherever they are. Right? So how do we remain aligned as moms, true to our values, yet not sacrifice one for the other? How do we grow our family and how do we grow our business and have them be aligned? That's what I'm really passionate about.
So good. And yeah, I think it's everything you said there rings true, and it makes sense why it's hard for a mom to prioritize those things. And it's also just a reflection, for me as a husband to say, okay, how can I show up differently to encourage this more and also just support? It's like, yeah, it's not as easy to just book a flight and, hey, I'm headed out of town this weekend. It's the 16 to 20 other things that you listed there that have to get done before you can book that flight. So I love that. Mike, what's coming up for you?
I'm curious on, you have the little one. You said 10 years old.
10. Mm-hmm.
So what are you? It's hard to. I'm just going to ask the question. It's probably not the best. You hopefully you could decipher. But it's like, what have you learned from the first 3 that you feel like I kind of messed up on that a little bit, or I want to do a better job at that for the 4th one?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, are there some things that's like, all right, the oldest usually kind of is the experiment, and then the second one, it's like, all right, let's try to correct that a little bit. But by the time you get to 4, it's like, all right, we figured out a bunch of these mess ups, and sometimes maybe there's even an overcompensation that maybe take place. So I'm the youngest, so that's why I got I don't know. I feel like my parents were, by the time I came along, they were so tired. They're like, oh my God, another one. Like, just figure it out. Hopefully, so if you could just kind of speak to that, maybe just a little bit, if there's anything that shows up. I don't even know what the actual question is, but just something that you could speak to there.
Absolutely. I remember when I had I think it was my 3rd, my mother-in-law sent me the book. I think it might just be called Birth Order. Like, the whole book's written on birth order. It's a very real thing, right? There is something to the order in which you are born and the different pieces and how they play out. And I think the number one thing is to have grace with yourself as a parent, to realize you're not the same parent with your first as you are with your 4th. We weren't making as much money, when we had our first. We weren't living in the same place. My time schedule was way different. My mindset was different. So I wasn't the same person. The same mom that raised Carissa, that birthed her, is not the same mom that birthed Brielle. So just having grace for like, yeah, you had a different mom. You had a different dad. And coming from that place, that relieves so much of the pressure, because it's not that you got it right or got it wrong. It's you got it right in that season. I made the best decisions I knew how to make as a 25-year-old Alyce with my firstborn. And I'm making the best decisions now as a 45-year-old with a 10-year-old. And it shows up very differently. Yeah, dude, is my 4th-born listening to music that I never would have let my firstborn listen to? 100%. Because she's in the car with the other 3. Like, let's talk about the practicality of, no, you're only going to listen to Kids Bop. Like, that's not fair to the other kids, right? Like, so there's compensations that you have to make because of now the new information that didn't exist when there was only one and you could just watch Baby Einstein and play classical music and, put him to bed at 6:30 and it was lovely, So I think the biggest thing, honestly, is just with having that grace for yourself to realize you're not the same person and the circumstances are entirely different. So yeah, you're going to be a different parent. My 4th one is going to get a cell phone probably when she turns 11, where my first one probably didn't get it till she was 15 or 16. And yes, there are pros and cons to being any one of those ages, and we have conversations about it. So I think that's the important part, is to talk about, yeah, you're the firstborn, and that really stinks. And let's look at all the good things that came with you being first that your fourth will never get. All of the field trips I went on with my firstborn. By the time I got to my second and my third, I'm like, I do not want to go to that Renaissance festival again. I have been there. I'm not going. Go with your friends. I'm done. Right? Like, I'm not going. So she doesn't get those experiences. Like, let's make a list of all of the things the fourth doesn't get because the first got it.
I like that response a lot. And specifically the lens of, I'm not the same person I was when I was raising the first one as I am raising the fourth, because that I never heard that before.